Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Storytime with Father Growley. I'm Father Trace Browning from All Saints Church in Salt Lake City, Utah. Tonight we have a story about Jesus. Father Growley and I, we like Jesus a lot. So tonight we're going to tell a story that's found in the Gospels, and let's begin. This story took place a long time ago, at the time of Jesus, where he lived. There was once a man who was unable to walk. In fact, he had not been able to walk for many, many years. Well, one day he heard that Jesus was going to be visiting his very village. Now, he had heard about Jesus. He'd heard about his teachings, how Jesus taught that God's love reaches out to everyone, including the poor, the sick, someone like him who couldn't walk, who had to beg for food. And he'd also heard stories that Jesus had been able to heal people who were blind, people who were sick. So this man wanted to go see Jesus. He wanted to hear him, maybe even ask to be healed. But he couldn't walk, and it was a long journey into town. His friend visited him that morning, and he asked him why he looked so sad. And he told him he wanted to see Jesus, but there was no way he could make the journey into the village to do it. So his friend said, "I'll be right back." And he returned to the man's house with 3 other friends. And he said, "We are going to carry you to go see Jesus." And they placed him on a mat. They picked him up and walked him into town. Now, sometimes people would have a mat in those days. It was a mat you would lay down on. It would be like this, Father Growley. Yes, I know it's a placemat, but if it was a regular mat in those days, it would be like this. And the friends picked up the 4 corners of the mat and carried him into town. So it was not an easy journey, and it's hard to carry someone a long distance, but that's what they did. Now, when they arrived at the house where Jesus was, there was a problem. Jesus was there inside teaching, but the house was absolutely packed with people all around Jesus. In fact, there were so many people they couldn't all fit in the house. So the doorway to the house was completely filled with people. People were gathered at all the windows, in fact, all around the house, just to see if they could hear him teach and listen to him. There was no way for this man and his 4 friends to get into that house and see Jesus. But one of his friends had an idea, and he told the others. They decided this is what they would do. They climbed up onto the roof of that house. They climbed up onto the roof of that house. Now, roofs in those days, they would have these big beams of wood, and then in between the beams and all over the roof, it was just packed with dried, hard mud. And so the friends decided, we can do this. So they carried the friend. Imagine carrying a friend who couldn't walk onto a roof of a house. They got onto the roof of the house, and they began to dig a hole in the roof. They began to dig a hole in the roof. They dug through the mud, and sometimes there'd be grass on these roofs, and they dug. Imagine that happening if you were inside the house. But once they were on the roof and they dug this hole, they finally made the hole big enough to lower their friend right into the house. They tied ropes around him and they let him down. So here was Jesus. He was teaching. He was surrounded by all these people, and everyone must have heard the noises on the roof. And then they hear people digging above them. Maybe some mud fell through. I don't know. And then they see this man lowered from the roof, and he ends up right in front of Jesus. Everyone was silent. The 4 men are still up on the roof. The man is there in front of Jesus, and Jesus looked at this man in front of him. He looked at his 4 good friends. He could see them down through the hole in the roof. And Jesus saw what faith all of them must have had. And so he looked at the man and said, "You are healed. Your sins are forgiven. You can take up your mat and you can walk. This man heard Jesus, and he believed what Jesus said. And immediately he stood up, and he not only walked for the first time in years and years, he jumped and he began to dance for joy. And everyone in the house and all around the house, they were amazed at what they saw. And the man and his friends, they returned to their homes, walking and running and praising God. This is a story about faith, and it invites us to think about our faith. Think about how this man and his friends believed in Jesus and what Jesus could do. It's also a story about helping others. The story showed us how these four friends, what they did. Sometimes it is good to help others when we're able to. The story also tells us sometimes it's good to let others help you. And maybe in letting others help you, maybe they can help you see Jesus. And that is the end of our story. This is a song about peace. It's called Peace Before Us. It uses pretty simple words. It talks about peace before us, behind us, under our feet, peace within us, peace over us. Let all around us be peace. And then we change out the word peace for other words. So let's start. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace over us, let all around us be peace. Right before us, right behind us, right under our feet. Right within us, right over us, let all around us be right. Love before us, love behind us, love under our feet. Love within us, love over us, let all around us be love. Christ before us, Christ behind us, Christ under our feet. Christ within us, Christ over us, let all around us be Christ. And back to the word peace. Peace before us, peace behind us, peace under our feet. Peace within us, peace over us, let all around us be peace. Let all around us be peace. Let all around us be Our final blessing is one we've used before, but it fits this song really well. The deep peace of the running waves be with you. The deep peace of the flowing air be with you. May the deep peace of the quiet earth be with you. The deep peace of the shining stars and moon be with you. May the peace of God be with you, this night and always. Amen. Good night, everyone, and God bless.